getting to have priests to, that we're friends with, and we actually experience real life with. We see the joys, the sufferings, the hardships. I mean, even Bobby and I have experienced, priest friends who've had gone through like mental illness and depression, anxiety, who
struggles with their family, struggles with
just they're real people, and some of them have trauma in their childhood. Some of there's brokenness. They're human beings, right? Because some people treat priests like there's this like clericalism, and where they essentially like priests are. You treat them, and of course you treat your friends with respect. Sure. You treat everyone with respect, and they're your priests. They are priests. But we get to experience the vulnerability, the realness of priests. So I just want to ask, like, what are some things, especially because you have, especially now with your background, what are some kind of common things you see?
Yeah, and I think too, just to kind of, even before we go into that, to just say there is so much hope in these men that we know who have laid down their life for Christ and his church. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that I always come back to, is just how much hope I'm filled with, just as, to see friends say yes, obviously. But I remember, it's like a common thing you'll hear when I'll say, I'm going to an ordination. And everyone's immediate response is, no one becomes a priest anymore. Or there's this like, these people obviously don't know anything, but
like we know tons of priests.
Exactly.
Become priests all the time.
These seminaries are being filled, and men are still laying down their life, and to lay down your life for the church in 2022 is not an easy.
It's not something prestigious, prestigious anymore. Like it used to be. People looked up to priests like, wow, and it was something that was we were in awe of it. And now, literally, we have a friend who the day of his ordination, the night of his ordination, he got spat on.
Yeah.
Because it was right after the whole priest scandal in 2002 or whenever it was. And he was like, we were at my reception and someone spat on me. That's the reality, is people, and I have friends in other countries, friends from the Netherlands who are like, if a priest or nun walks down the street, people will spit on you, or people will throw insults. I mean, it's not something that seems cool to do anymore, Right. And so the men who are entering into the priesthood,
they know what they're saying yes to. And they know who they're saying yes to.
They know they're not coming into a life of like, this is so, everyone like loves you and appreciates you.
Sure.
And,
So I think that's what I want people to hear when they hear this, is that there are really good men laying down their life for Christ and his church. And like Jackie was saying, what we have been privileged to experience and what we want to invite other people into is to experience that hope kind of firsthand and for yourself, because it's really beautiful. So as Jackie said, I've had the great privilege of seeing a lot of friends become priests and walking with priests in those, early years of their priesthood, those really formative years. And, there's kind of common themes, I think, that we just struggle with as a society in general. And then I think these can kind of be like magnified when you're in like a parish environment, or when you're a public person, or all those things. And I think that one of the things I've noticed a lot is that because there is so much pressure put on these guys, that they're sort of carrying the weight of all the baggage that people have about the church, or this one priest they read about in the news, or all these horrible things that, guys take this weight on themselves, which part of that is just the reality of being a priest in today's world. But then there becomes all this pressure, and there's so much pressure to, again, this is a societal thing at large, but also I think something I see, especially magnified in priests, is that there's just this absolute steadfast belief that your worth and value as a person is in what you do and not who you are. And
right. I think which is a general thing, because people don't ask you they're like, what do you do for what you do, and then kind of your status and what you do is like, oh, well, I think less of you or more of you based on your income, what you do.
Sure, or how much you perform, or how much they see you doing, or how often they see you doing it, that there's just this real, like I said, this lie that I think is from the evil one, that your value as a priest is dependent on what you do. And what did we just say? That, priests are not good for what they're doing, although we need the sacraments and we need priests to do these things that only priests can do. But also that as a church, we have to support these priests, and knowing that that their worth is not in what they do and is in who they are and like just the goodness of themselves. And so I just think that's one common lie that these guys who are called from all their complexities and all the things of their past and all their struggles in relationship or their struggles in prayer, all those things, that there's just this, and ultimately what we know that is true of our identity as beloved sons and daughters is that we have a God who says that your worth is not in what you do, but who you are, that you are. God could have created anyone or anything and yet still created us out of love here. And, to really try to kind of own that identity and receive that identity when you have a world and a church or, God forbid, parishioners like reminding you that your worth is in what you do, I think is really something I've seen a lot and is really difficult to.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure. There's burnout. And actually there was a study done that it's like there have been many priests who've experienced burnout before the age of, 40?
45. Yeah. In kind of preparing for this, I was just, tossing questions out to friends. And I had one friend who told me that he learned in his first year of priesthood implicitly that taking a vacation was bad because he was in a parish with a pastor who believed that his worth was a nice guy, but total workaholic, right? Which I think has been a reaction of either bad priests or just kind of a reaction to the culture. Like we have to do more. And so these priests go to parishes and they have, too much responsibility or too much on their plate. And they each have 9 jobs. There's all this craziness. But he just said that he never saw his priest take a vacation, his pastor. And so I think someone called him out in his first year of priesthood to say, you have to take a rest.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to be, but that I think that's a common thing, unfortunately, is that, and especially when a priest is not known, then the way that they can prove themselves to other people is by, proving their worth, not just for who they are, but in doing these things, this kind of performance mindset. Again, this is very pervasive across the culture. I think we all struggle with this in different, how much am I producing or how much am I doing? But yeah, just that is like one thing that is, when he said that, it was just such a gut punch because ideally, people who work, and obviously it's different when you have kids, but Monday through Friday, then have a weekend off, then priests obviously work on Saturdays and Sundays, so they should have one day off during the week.
Yeah.
But then people ask them to do things on their day off, or there's not a culture where that's supported for just real rest, even though God commands us to do it.
To take a Sabbath, yeah.
Right. And then they're kind of stuck in that mindset of, am I weak for needing to rest?
And then if you have, most priests on their first assignment they aren't made pastor right away. They're under a pastor, so they become like an associate pastor. And was it one of your priest friends who was like, normally it's either, if it's not a narcissist, it's a workaholic? And Bobby and I have had a couple friends who we have just heard the horror stories of like the pastor is a narcissist and how horrible. Oh my gosh. Like I have friends who make fun of me because I'm like, narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist. Like, but when you are literally working for somebody, and I have worked for people who are high on the scale, they would score pretty high on that scale. It is horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the twisting of, like you're always like, I'm always right, you're always wrong, and I'm gonna twist your word, and you're like, wait, what?
Sure. And I think too that there is this, like any first job that you have, that boss is gonna be, you're gonna want to please, or you're gonna want to do well for, and there's already this pressure when you're doing something for the first time. Yeah. And so we don't need to be adding to that pressure by putting these guys in unhealthy assignments.
So praise God when they do have an awesome pastor. Yes. It's like when you have a bad manager, you work for a bad manager, and then you have like a really healthy work environment. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh,
it's like night and day.
Night and day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, wow, you kind of don't. Sometimes you don't even know how toxic a workplace is until you work at a healthy, and you're like, oh, this was what it was supposed to look like.
Which is why it's so important for us to be forming healthy priests who in 10, 15, 20 years will be then healthy pastors to kind of break the cycle of that has that we've seen like pretty pervasive even in the church.
And another thing that would lead to someone being a healthy priest is, and this is probably what you've seen, is like making sure that they have community.
Yeah.
Because how lonely. I had a priest friend once say to me, we almost doom priests to fail when we send them to live by themselves.
Yeah.
I was like, yes. Like when you don't have accountability, when you don't have brotherhood. Well, and And Bobby would say this too, like when you go from these guy friends who like experience community in seminary and they have this, and then all of a sudden you're like in this remote parish where you have no community and you don't live with anybody. Oh, what a crazy thing. So
Right.
yeah, you've had priest friends who said like, yeah, you can get lonely. You need people.
Right. And I think that we all need each other. Like I've seen this still, as a 30-year-old who's single, that I need other people and I need.
If you have any brothers who are single, by the way, this beautiful, lovely woman next to me, I'm just saying this is a shout out right here.
Well, I have to sliver a 50. Let me.
I will be the Catholic matchmaker. I'm just saying that's a job I would love to have. So anybody, brothers?
But not if they're weird.
Yeah, well, of course. I would hope that's because of that. Like, normal, Catholic, solid Catholic men who think Lauren is
And
awesome.
who like to play Clue.
Who likes to play Clue? Yeah. Skippo.
Skippo.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So
Now that we got that out of the way,
Even,
I can leave now.
so even as a single
Yes,
woman,
the need for community.
The need for community,
Absolutely. And I
right.
think this is true. And I think many of my married friends or friends in relationships would say the same thing. It's all too hard to do on our own.
Right.
And I think, when I had my kind of coming to know the faith in a deeper way in college, I was surrounded by people, and thank God, because I wasn't afraid, and I was filled with so much hope because I had other people who were genuinely trying to follow Jesus just as I was. And I think we all need that, and priests do that with each other, and they need that with other people.